I think people have forgotten in the 3.5 years that she actually was really, really radical, particularly in leading up to the Democrat primaries in the last presidential election. And now, these videos are surfacing. I think what it shows, her taking these very radical views, whether it be defunding police, helping to crowdfund for violent riot suspects who carried out allegedly arson attacks and looting and attacks in Minneapolis. Like people died as a result of that, and she fundraised for the people who were arrested after people had died, so people can match up the timeline. She didn't want, for example, federal law enforcement to be in Portland, Oregon to protect the federal courthouse during the Antifa insurrection that set the courthouse building on fire. If those officers were not there, that building would have burnt down along with all the people inside.
Is there any evidence in any of these cities, whether it's Portland or Seattle or LA or San Francisco, and we can go through the long list of them, I would include Boston in that now, maybe even Denver to some extent. Is there any evidence that any of this is turning around anywhere, that there have been administration changes and police department changes that are fixing these problems, or is everything just still sliding in the wrong direction?
There are some positive developments, I'll say. Positive for those who care about the rule of law and care about public safety. So in Portland, for example, earlier this year, there was a election for next year's district attorney, Mike Schmidt, who benefited in his most recent campaign from a lot of Soros money and a lot of leftist money, ended up losing to a moderate candidate. So going on next year, Portland, Multnomah County, where Portland is, will have a moderate district attorney, in contrast to somebody who was openly self-identified progressive. In Seattle, a couple of years ago, Seattle's city attorney, which is their prosecutor, radical leftist, was replaced by a moderate Republican, actually. So, and then. But a prosecutor is also only one. It's an important part, but not the full part of seeing this whole system work. You have all these type of things have to work together. I think on the left, on the West Coast, the Democrats there are more the self-identified progressive ones. They're more about sort of adhering to ideology, I would say. For me, observing as an outsider, when I look at the Democrat leadership, for example, let's say New York City or Boston, yeah, they're all Democrats, but they also are willing to compromise and get things done. For example, the mayor of New York City, he's had to come out, for example, and speak out against the mass migration of illegal foreign nationals into New York City. That's been extremely destructive, damaging to public safety, and a resource issue as well, an infrastructure issue for New York City. I don't know, for example, if some cities like in, I don't know, Berkeley or Portland or Seattle, they had an influx of the migrants that New York City has had, if their leadership would be willing to come out and change tunes. They're too wedded to certain leftist ideals.
Right. Is the problem with that, though, that you could take a place like New York and it's like, yeah, Eric Adams occasionally now does say something sane, like we can't have everybody come here and taking resources and everything, but he doesn't do anything about it. So it's like, yes, I suppose that's nice, but in a weird way, it's just slow rolling the inevitable destruction.
So my understanding of New York City is that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the buses that were busing in migrants are no longer actually allowed to go into New York City. In fact, what's happening is that the buses, because of, I think it was a city council ordinance or change, instead they're stopping like in Newark. So basically next door, and the migrants are coming in that way.
Right. You literally just get on the train for 20 minutes and you're in New York City. I mean,
exactly. But still, it's more of like the mayor's trying what he can. And I'm not like defending his record. My point is just like, even he has had to change his rhetoric and enact what little type of things he can in his sort of what little power he is able to do. That is in stark contrast to statements he's made in the past and other New York City officials have made about the state and the city being a sanctuary city and welcoming to all, no matter who, no matter how many. And of course, when the reality hits them, it's not sustainable. Unfortunately, as you point out, the damage may be done. The damage is ongoing, and it's of their own doing, and the people who have to suffer are the working class poor of these jurisdictions.
What do you make of this sort of at the national level for the Democrats? Because we're going to release this on August 19th, so we're within a week of the Democratic National Convention. Again, I've been off the grid for a couple of weeks at this point once we air this, so I'll go on the assumption that Kamala is the presumptive nominee. I think she has put forth some of the worst sort of Marxist ideas imaginable. She has a horrific track record. That's my personal opinion on all of this. I mean, do you think there's any way the Democrat Party staves off nationalizing all of these bad ideas? Or is this it?
Well, when in the 3.5 years that Kamala Harris has been VP, we actually haven't seen too much of her in public. And I think Biden's people recognizes that she's a terrible public speaker and that she was a liability potentially to his administration. So she was given sort of all these smaller tasks and whatever. I mean, the one big task she was given was the border. She's spectacularly failed on.
Yeah.
I think people have forgotten in the 3.5 years that she actually was really, really radical, particularly in leading up to the Democrat primaries in the last presidential election. Yeah. And now, these videos are surfacing. I think what it shows, her taking these very radical views, whether it be defunding police, helping to crowdfund for violent riot suspects who carried out allegedly arson attacks and looting and attacks in Minneapolis. Like people died as a result of that, and she fundraised for the people who were arrested after people had died, so people can match up the timeline. Mm-hmm. She didn't want, for example, federal law enforcement to be in Portland, Oregon, to protect the federal courthouse during the Antifa insurrection that set the courthouse building on fire. If those officers were not there, that building would have burnt down along with all the people inside. She said on the record that she wanted to ban fracking and all these really radical things. I can go on and on, banning private health insurance, so on and so forth. These video clips are coming out. I think what they show is that she's not a principled leader and that she'll take on positions that she thinks will get her votes in a position of power. And that's actually something really dangerous because, the executive position in the United States for the president has a lot of power. And if she's able to change on a whim, depending on what she thinks will make her popular, that's dangerous for America. I hope voters recognize that and remember that about her record. She's been, as we are speaking, she's been coronated. There's a huge social media virality about her. And of course, all the press is putting out these fluff pieces, and she's made into this cool aunt celebrity type figures. I hope that in the coming days and weeks that circus will subside a little bit and that we can get actual journalists to write a bit more about her record and investigate a bit more of what is her political legacy. She's been in the public space for a very long time in California politics, in the federal government. So I just look forward to this clown show being over right now in the last week.
If you're looking for more uncensored opinions from today's thought leaders, check out our media playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.